There's one right down here, Ken. Do you see it right down there? Yeah. He should get you a nice chair, too.
All right. That's nice.
What a gentleman. Isn't that wonderful? Don't we love him? Yeah, yeah. Well, good evening and welcome to the University of Maine at Augusta and the second in a series of 6 lectures at the Maine State Forum. The remaining presentations will happen on the last Wednesday of the month, November, February, March, and April from 6 to 7:30 p.m. So please tell all your friends and neighbors to come to the forums that we have. My name is Brenda McAleer. I'm the Associate Provost here at the University of Maine, Augusta, the Dean of the College of Professional Studies, and the Dean for the University College system that is throughout the state. It is our hope that the public university located here in the state capital can provide the opportunity for the UMA community and the public to connect with researchers and policymakers whose important work affects the lives of all Mainers. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight to participate in this presentation of the Co-Occurring Disorders and Veterans Court. Our speakers tonight are Kennebec District Attorney Maeghan Maloney and Kennebec County Sheriff Ken Mason. I think you can tell which one is which. Yeah. He's the one in the uniform. Okay. Tonight's speakers will discuss the impact of this special court on the people of Maine, its challenges, and its successes. The Maine State Forum is supported by a Presidential Research and Innovation Grant from the University of Maine at Augusta. The series is coordinated by our very own Professor Mary Louise Davitt from our Justice Studies program, and Assistant Professor Sharon McMahon Sawyer of the Justice Studies program. Thank you, ladies, for doing this. I also want to thank our UMA technical staff. Paul Philbrick is the man up there in the booth, and he's doing the filming so that it can be recorded and presented to others that were not able to be here tonight. Kennebec District Attorney Maeghan Maloney was born and raised in Lewiston, Maine. She earned her bachelor's degree from Swarthmore College in political science and continued her education at Harvard Law School as a Truman Scholar for Public Service. She was the president and editor of the Harvard Journal on Legislation, graduating cum laude in 1997. She worked as a research assistant for renowned law professor Lawrence Tribe, drafting briefs for multi-state cigarette litigation and researching and editing an amicus brief for the U.S. Supreme Court. Ms. Maloney also worked as the deputy district attorney in, she tells me, Portland, Oregon, not the state of Washington, working in a trial unit until she was promoted to head the multi-million-dollar civil forfeiture unit. She also has worked at the Verrill and Dana law firm in Portland as a litigator before joining the state attorney general's office. From 2008 until her election as district attorney, Maeghan operated her own general litigation practice, providing legal services to local families, trying cases in the courts at Kennebec and Somerset counties, and serving as a guardian ad litem to advocate for the special needs and protect the rights of children. In 2010, Deputy Attorney Maloney ran a successful campaign to represent the citizens of Augusta's House District 57 and quickly established herself as an effective legislator. It is her knowledge and skill in working with the legal community and legislators that led to the passage of the first Veterans Court in Maine. Kennebec Sheriff Ken Mason was elected to his position last year after serving as deputy sheriff in Lincoln County since February 2005. Before that time, Sheriff Mason had served on the Augusta Police Force for 18 years. He oversees a budget of $7.9 million. Kennebec County Jail employs 90 corrections officers, is rated to hold 147 inmates, though regularly it houses a few more. The Kennebec Sheriff's Office works closely with the District Attorney and the Co-occurring Disorders and Veterans Court to implement its treatment programs for veterans and others who fall under the court's jurisdiction. There will be a question and answer period after tonight's presentation. I would ask that you raise your hand to ask a question and wait to speak until Sharon Sawyer has brought you the microphone, that you have the microphone in hand. This will help everyone in the audience to hear the questions and aids in our ability to record everyone who speaks. I am pleased and very proud to welcome Sheriff Ken Mason and District Attorney Maeghan Maloney to the Maine State Forum.
My intro is very boring compared to yours.
I should correct two things. One is that I also cover Somerset County, because I can't leave Somerset County out. We have 8 district attorneys in Maine, and we all cover, well, most of us cover more than one county. There are a few that only cover one. So I cover Kennebec and Somerset. And I lived in Freiburg before Lewiston, just to not leave Freiburg out. So I'm sure that's what it said. I should Google myself and find out why it says Lewiston first. But those are the 2 quick corrections.
And as I was speaking to Maeghan, my intro was very boring compared to hers. She has quite a list of education there that she should be very proud of. She's doing a good job for the people of Kennebec. And we will continue to work together to be moving forward and just getting better at what we do.
Right. And really, that is the most important message. The fact that we do work together so well enables all of the programs that we're about to talk about to exist. If we didn't work together, none of these programs could exist, because you have to have all of law enforcement on the same page in order to make it happen. And you'll get more of a sense of that as we go through this.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and we're the Maeghan and I, we are the ones that really are the spark, the start the fire. It is the people that we work with underneath of us. They are the doers.
Absolutely.
They are the ones, you know, with our guidance, they're the ones that make the programs become successful, which is why it's up to us to look out what is working, what is not working, changing what is working, tweaking it a little bit. And that's what we're going to do as we move forward, like they've been doing before I became sheriff.
Right. Yeah. So it's been so I guess we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about the Co-occurring Disorders Court and the Veterans Court, as was advertised, but also just give you a little bit of a sense of some of the other alternatives to incarceration that we've been working on. So now I think, should I get up here to? I think I need to move the slide forward. So we thought we'd start with alternatives, just to give you an overview of the different programs that we have going, and then go more in-depthly into the co-occurring and the Veterans Court. So these are some of the alternatives to incarceration, and Sheriff Mason was going to talk about the alternative sentencing program, which is a real jewel that we have in Kennebec County.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You want to do it now?
Sure.
All right. So the alternative sentencing program, that's been going on for a long time. That started back in 1986 when Frank Hackett was the sheriff. And I know that date because back in 1986 when I was discharged from the Marine Corps, I needed a job, and I joined the corrections rank of the Kennebec County Correctional Division, a much smaller facility at that time. And the first alternative sentencing program, it occurred at Bucher School. I really didn't have a clue. All I know is that they were going to be sleeping on racks in the gymnasium and and that we were going to be watching them to make sure that they didn't leave, and supervise them during the day by cleaning up the school. That's how everything kind of started. And since I have been sheriff, we have had 4 alternative sentencing programs throughout the county, to include Fairfield. Mm-hmm. We were up at Lawrence. Yep. Yep. So we're not just helping the people of Kennebec, we're helping whoever is in need. The number of people, it's not the same every time. Yeah. We try to get as many as we can, because we can house a lot of people in the schools and in the gymnasiums. We have a lot of cots. And again, the reason behind this is it's an alternative to going to jail, and to, again, putting people in our jail, creating an overcrowded problem. I'm very lucky to say, and I'm happy to say, that we're not running into that problem right now. This morning, we were down to 142 people. That's great. Which is significantly less than when I first came in. Yeah. We're even going so far as we are housing inmates from Penobscot County, because they are just critically overcrowded, and we're trying to help out another sheriff's office to try to ease their burden, because it's a real safety problem. So the alternative sentencing program, we just did one this past weekend out to Pilgrim Lodge in West Gardner. And what we do, these are camps for kids to enjoy during the summer, and then when all the kids leave, the place needs to be cleaned up. There's a lot of leaves. It's amazing what the people will do. They can paint, and what they're doing, it's an alternative to going to jail. And the thing about it is it doesn't cost the people of Kennebec anything, because they have to pay to attend that. So that really just, it pays the salaries of the corrections officers, it pays for the food, which can be significant depending on the size of the class at the time. We utilize people that are in the program to cook the food, and some of them are amazing cooks. I had breakfast out there this past Monday. It was delicious. But again, it's just an alternative to going to jail, because the people have the choice. And it's obvious by the numbers of people that attend this, with the help of the district attorney, because they're the ones that they do research on them and discuss that as an alternative. And really, that's all I have. It's a better thing than going to jail. I am so happy that when I go into the jail multiple times during the day, they let me out.
And it really is a beautiful example of where we do work together, because I have to sentence the person to this alternative program. So I need to recommend that as the sentence for the disposition. And the sheriff has to agree to run the program. So it takes both of us in order to create an alternative to incarceration. So this is a program where you have to be looking at a sentence of 7 days or less, and that used to be a big crunch on the jail. You know, people who were just there for 2 days, but there were a lot of people who were just there for 2 days, and it took up a lot of bed space, and it was this unpredictable flow, and they're not dangerous people. They're people who are almost all of them are there for traffic infractions. Sometimes we have people with warden service violations, but they're low-level crime. We don't want to mix low-level criminals with high-level criminals. That creates bad outcomes. So the evidence shows that. So it enables us to have low-level people together, and instead of just sitting around in jail all day, they're actually doing something good for the community. So, as the sheriff said, to go out to a camp that kids go to during the summer and fix it up, paint it. They're doing work, and they feel proud of the work that they're doing, and then we don't see them in the criminal justice system again. So that's ideal. They pay for the right to be there. If they went to jail, it would be our taxpayer dollars that would be paying for the jail cell, but this is a program that they actually pay for. So, and it costs about $200 for the weekend if you pre-register, $250 if you don't pre-register, and then a little bit longer if you stay for the full week program. So it's a tremendous program. We put a lot of servicing into it. I always try to go out and talk. I know the sheriff is always there. I'm not always there.
I unfortunately wasn't there last Friday. It's the first one that I missed, but the district attorney was there, as well as the captain in my stead, because I give them the "thou shalt not" speech. Yeah. Just explaining to them about that. They, even though they're in this beautiful camp with these wonderful woods around, they are still deemed as in custody, and that I have an expectation that they will treat my staff with the utmost respect, as they will treat them with that, so that they can complete, because they have to complete this. And it's really not hard. The people that I work with, they're all professionals. They've been doing this a long time. When I was in Lincoln County, we also had the alternative sentencing program. It really works, and it works for the counties that utilize it.
I always like to talk to them about how much money they spent to get to where they are that day, in terms of how much money was that drink that you had that night before you got behind the wheel of the car, because most of the people there, but 95%, are there because of their first OUI. And Friday, I actually had my all-time winner for having spent the most, $30,000 on lawyer fees, court fees, and he crashed his car into a business restitution. So my goal is to point out just how expensive it is, so that maybe people will think about it before taking this action again. So yeah, it's a great program. Other things that we have, deferred disposition. I put that up there as kind of a catch-all, because what that is something relatively new in criminal justice. What we do there is we look at someone who has again, a low-level crime, and we say, okay, we're not going to it's not going to be a plea to this charge or nothing. We're going to give you an opportunity to show that you can turn your life around, and we're going to give you a year to do it. If you don't do it during that year, it's an automatic conviction on whatever you're charged of. If, however, you take advantage of this opportunity, you do the counseling, or you do the substance abuse treatment, or whatever it is, you can throw anything into a deferred disposition. It could be a parenting class, whatever is specific to that case. What does that case need? Then at the end of the year, there's a benefit. So it's a carrot stick approach. The benefit can be either a complete dismissal of the charges, depending on what the charges are, or it can be a drop down of the charges. The one that is the most popular is the deferred disposition for first-time OUIs that are less than a .15 BAC, no accident, no extenuating circumstances like no children in the car, nothing that would aggravate the case. Then during that year, they can't drink for alcohol for an entire year if they decide to take this program. So that's a big burden on many people, and many people don't take it for that reason. But if they do, then they don't drink alcohol for a year. They have to have a machine on their car that they blow into before they drive. They have to do community service, do substance abuse evaluation through the BMV. And at the end of all of that, they still end up with a Class D crime, which is what an OUI is, but it's driving to endanger instead of OUI. And for many people, that difference matters considerably in their employment. I found that it matters particularly for those who are working as National Guardsmen working in law enforcement, working in education, that they were facing the loss of their job over a conviction on an OUI. And that's why I decided to offer that. I didn't want to offer it only to them, but I did make it, well, really so difficult that they are the only ones who take it, because it's just not worth it for others. Others will say, you know what, I'm not going to go an entire year without drinking. I'd rather go work at a camp for a weekend and take the OUI conviction. It's giving people choices, giving people that ability to still have a feeling of control over their life, even when they're going through their first bout with the criminal justice system.
Yeah. And to touch along with the deferred disposition on a personal note, my son had just turned 18. He was a senior in high school. And he and some friends decided that a fun night of mailbox baseball was in their future. Yeah, so they went to Belgrade, and they got caught. My son was not proud of his actions, and having seen many juveniles come into the system not like my son, that their upbringing was different, and they had gotten away with slang for murder, if you will. They just have got away with so many things, and I knew that this was an option for my son, or it could be. So I went and I spoke with with Everett Fowle, yep, who, in regards to this, telling him, look, these people want my son hanged by the neck, and I talked to my son. I go, did you do it? Yep. I said, you're guilty. You know, I'm not getting you an attorney. You did it. So Everett, Judge Fowle, now, he came up with a deferred disposition, so that if he was good for a year, it went away. Ha-ha. But there's caveat to that. The day after he graduated from high school, he went up to the Pine Tree Camp and had to do 200 hours of community service for the Pine Tree Camp as a cook. That's what he did for a job anyways. So he was up there for half the day, back to do his regular job here in Augusta, and that went on until his 200 hours was up. Plus, he was responsible, because he was the only 18-year-old. His other three knucklehead friends were 17.
Oh.
Okay, so it was a little different for them. And it was extremely difficult for me with a trooper in my kitchen, giving him a ticket, okay, with the tears running down my face, going, are you proud now and happy? But anyways, it ended up being good. My son is very successful now. He has a wonderful wife, and he gave me a 5-year-old grandson. Oh. Well, he will be 5, okay? So that type of thing paid off. Here's with a deferred disposition. Again, cops, kids, they're not immune to doing stupid things.
It's a beautiful example. And I mean, really, that's a perfect example, because at age 18, once you are branded a criminal, it's with you your whole life. We don't have a system in this country other than a pardon from the chief executive to ever get that charge to go away. I mean, once it's there, it's once that conviction is there, it's with you for life. And you put it on all employment applications, and you have to keep starting every single job interview with that information. So it's a lot to brand an 18-year-old with. So
yeah. And I was grateful to have that choice. Well, yeah. My son had that choice. He was an adult, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were lucky, and this is, I mean, he'll be 33 at the end of the month. So since he was 18 years old, he's done very well.
Yeah. And the sheriff touched upon the difference between being 17 and 18. That's actually the last point, but might as well go right to it. Juvenile justice system is completely different from the adult system. It has one goal, and that's rehabilitation. With the adult justice system, we have three goals. We have rehabilitation as one of them, but punishment can also be a goal, and deterrence is also a goal, both general deterrence for the community and specific deterrence for the individual. With juvenile justice, we're only allowed to have one goal, and that is rehabilitation. So you'll see a lot of programs and in the juvenile justice system that don't exist in the adult system as a result. And it's just a completely different path if you happen to be 17 as opposed to 18. We do have a new facility in Maine that is specifically for youthful offenders up at Mountain View. It used to be a youth center, but now mostly it's people between the ages of 18 and their early 20s, so that we can treat this population a little bit differently. But once you turn 18, it really is a rude awakening for someone entering the system for the first time. So, but for the juveniles, we have the rebound program, the diversion to assets program. We have, and these are programs focused on rehabilitation. We've got a nice mentorship program. We're now offering restorative justice circles in all of our juvenile cases, and it's a different approach to really try to make it so that we never see the juvenile in the adult system again. Detention is used very rarely, and generally when we do use detention at Long Creek, it's for the person's safety. It's when we are looking at a juvenile who doesn't have a safe family to live with and is in a situation where we're really worried about the juvenile. Now, that's not always the case. I mean, there's been in the newspaper, I'm sure you've all seen the case of the boy Andrew Busser, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, the boy who murdered his parents. He's been at Long Creek, right? So there are definitely dangerous juveniles at Long Creek as well. The proceeding that's been taking place, that's to bind him over into the adult system because he did commit the crime when he was a juvenile. There are certain exceptions, well, really murder's really the only one, where we can ask the court to treat the juvenile as an adult. But it's rare that we're successful, and it'll be interesting to see with this crime being particularly horrible, I think there's a greater chance he'll be held as an adult. Otherwise, he can only be held until age 21. So that's doesn't quite seem like enough time to help someone who needs as much help as he does. And then we have restorative justice has also been used in some adult cases. Right now, the biggest barrier is cost, because we do have to pay for the restorative justice mentors and who run the circles. So that's kept it back a little bit. But we've had a couple of famous cases. Our most famous one is Christopher Knight, the North Pond Hermit. He, as part of his sentence, did a restorative justice circle with the people that he had been burglarizing over the 27 years that he was breaking into their camps. And that happened because that was a request from the victims. That was the number one thing that I heard from all of the victims, is they wanted to meet him. They really wanted to meet him. I mean, he had been impacting their lives for so long, and they just wanted to understand it better, and they couldn't do that without meeting him. So, that was a very powerful circle, and people did leave saying that they felt better about things. So
it's a form of closure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is what
exactly.
it is.
Yeah. So, and then the community drug program is one that the community started in Skowhegan. We don't have the resources to dedicate a judge to it. Instead, we have a community court. And it's a group of 8 dedicated people from the community. We have people from Kennebec Behavioral Health, we have local doctors, probation and parole, myself, and we meet with the participants in the program every single month. We have requirements on what they have to do during the month that between meetings, and it lasts for an entire year. And that's been working well as far as our graduates have not been back into the criminal justice system. However, it's a very new program. So we've only had about 5 graduates at this point. So we're still waiting to see if they continue to do as well as they've been doing. But one graduate in particular actually started a Narcotics Anonymous meeting in Madison to help other people who were going through what she had just gone through. So I do find that when we give these services to people and these second chances, then I've seen times when they've gone ahead and given those opportunities to other people. That's been very rewarding. But now we'll go on to drug courts in general. The number of drug courts in Maine, there are 7. So these are the traditional drug courts, the ones that have a judge where they meet with the participants either every week or every other week. So unlike the other programs where it's far more, they're less structured, the drug courts, because of their structure and because of the judicial oversight, are able to take people who have committed far more serious crimes. So we have 7 in Maine. There's a total of 250 participants last year. We had 50 total graduates last year. For the co-occurring disorders court, that is the only court in Maine that treats both mental health and substance abuse together, and that's in Kennebec County. We also have the only veterans court in the state in Kennebec County. Because they are the only courts of their kind in the state of Maine, we will take a participant from anywhere in the state. So someone can commit a crime in, say, Washington County, and if the person is a veteran, he can apply to have his case transferred to our veterans court. And so many people do that. Now, the catch, the reason I would like to see more veterans courts is because when the case is transferred to Kennebec County, the person has to move here and has to live close enough to the court that we can do home checks and random drug screenings and all of the different pieces that you'll see when I have a slide on it. That's prohibitive for many people. You know, most people just can't up and move. So I would love to see a veterans court in York County and Androscoggin County so that more of this, programs like this would be available to more people. So this is to just talk a little bit about what happens to someone who's in the co-occurring disorders court. I call it CODVC because it's co-occurring disorders and veterans court. The way that it works is both courts meet on the same day, every single Monday, but they meet with 2 different dockets. They come in as a group. So the co-occurring disorders court people come in together. They do group counseling together. They support each other. The veterans come at a different time. They come into the court together. They do group counseling together. And they have been in a particularly cohesive group. They've done things like build a gazebo at a property for people to enjoy. They do organize hikes to do together. They go volunteer at the Greyhound Rescue Center. They work with the Veterans Mentors of Maine, which really has to be the #1 reason this program's so successful. These are volunteer veterans who mentor the people in the Veterans Court. They are available to the veterans 24/7, and they go above and beyond. They're an extraordinary group of people, and I think that is why it has been so successful. But you can see the requirements on them. They have to go to court every single Monday. They have to do individual mental health and substance abuse counseling every single week, group counseling every week, a curfew every single night with random home visits. The curfew is at 8:30. When we do a home visit, we're there at 8:35. It is a strict adherence to curfew. No illegal drug use, including no alcohol, no marijuana. That is part of the contract right from the beginning. We want people to learn how to handle stress without relying on a substance. So that is, and we're testing for it. Random drug screenings, daily supervision calls. They have to call in to Maine pretrial every day. And then the big one, school or work or volunteer requirements. We want to see someone before they graduate, we want that person to have turned their life around. We want them to be able to walk out the door and be successful and be a part of our community and have all of the pieces that they need in place in order to be a part of our community again, to have those pieces in place. And so we're there to help them put all of that together. So it's a lot. It's a lot of requirements, and that is really why the people that we see in this program are people who have some very serious felonies that they're looking at being convicted of, and it's a wake-up call. So that's when they're willing to undertake all of this work, because they're facing a long prison sentence if they do not go and make that decision to turn their life around. So we have about 15 to 18 veterans in the program at any one time, about 13 to 15 co-occurring disorders court people at any one time, and yeah, and it's an important group. Oh, and I wanted to make sure that we mentioned how the Veterans Block works with the Veterans Court. That's a key piece of it.
Right. Well, the Veterans Block is something that I inherited. It was started before I came, and being a veteran myself, I understood the concept, and it was very important for me to keep that. The Veterans Block and the CARA program that we'll talk about down the road here, it's the only block I feel comfortable going in without anybody else with me, because we all have something in common. We're all veterans. We have depending on the number of veterans that we have, and we will house them from other places, because I think the prison and us are the only ones with a veterans block. So if I have 8 veterans, we'll move them from a block that holds 18 to a block that holds 10, because I need to serve those veterans, but I also need to serve my constituents in Kennebec County. And by not filling those extra beds with people who are incarcerated, I'm not doing my constituents any good. Okay, so the veterans, they're together. All 5 branches of the services, the big plaques are on the wall: the Marine Corps, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. So they can recognize where they were. And I make sure that I go in and talk to them, not every day, but just as often as I can, so just to see how things are going. And again, they can relate to each other, mostly because, for quite a period of time now, we've been fighting on 2 fronts between Iraq and Afghanistan, and there are a lot of veterans out there that are fighting for our freedom. And when they come back, they can certainly have difficulties. I am lucky enough, I signed the check, I didn't have to cash it when I was in there. I consider myself very lucky. But again, it's very important that we take care of them, and we do that. But again, they know that they have to conduct themselves at a different level also.
Yeah, I always feel like with the veterans, it's really reminding them of who they are, right? That they signed up for service, and that they were at a certain place in their life when they made that decision to give to their country. And when something went wrong, when they came back in readjusting to our community, and all we need to do is remind them of the person that they were when they signed up. And it's on a slide coming up, but of the veterans in the veteran court, of the graduates, not one of them has ever committed another crime. Not one veteran graduate it's extraordinary. I mean, usually you would expect that there would be some, what we say, recidivism. Recidivism is a big word that means they've returned to state custody. So it works, reminding them that, you know, you took an oath to protect this country. You do not want to be a part of a force that's destroying this country. And they're reminded of that, and they go back to that person that they were when they took that oath. It's been extraordinary. And having the veterans block at the jail, I really don't know what we would do without it, because the veterans court, the people who are entering the veterans court sometimes need to serve a county jail sentence before they start all of the treatment that I showed you. And that's because we're dealing with some very serious felonies, and victims are, well, they're frankly horrified if there isn't some jail time. And the message to the community is important as well. We do have to worry about deterrence. So, for example, we have a veteran who went through the program who committed an armed robbery in Cumberland. Armed robbery. He held a gun to a store clerk's head. That's a Class A crime. He needed to spend some time in jail. So he can spend that time in the veterans block at Kennebec County and start that process of being reminded of who he is, of coming back into our community, and then after that time in Kennebec County, then start the out of custody part. But it would be very difficult to operate without that block, without being able to start there. And I should, since I mentioned him, I should mention that his story has a very happy ending. He has actually talked about the Veterans Court with me to many different forums. We've spoken at the Bar Association together, we've spoken at other public forums, and he talks about the reason for committing the robbery was because he felt completely dead inside. He felt like, you know, he couldn't feel anything anymore. So he thought about it and realized that it was a win-win, because when he committed an armed robbery, he was either going to be killed, in which case he wouldn't have that dead feeling anymore, he would just be dead, or he would have such an adrenaline rush that at least he would feel something again, and he just wanted to feel. So that's what brought him to commit it, and he had been highly decorated in the military. He was a Marine, as I know the sheriff is, and highly decorated, tremendous work serving our country, but just that difficulty in adjusting back when he came here. And as I said, he's been now doing talks, talking about how the veteran court, what it meant to him, how it impacted him, and he'll be graduating from USM this year with a master's in physics. Very smart guy, very, very smart guy. So it really does work. It really does turn people's life around. And I'm grateful that we've got this partnership to be able to get people started on that road to changing their life around as quickly as possible. Oh, and I mentioned the volunteer veterans of Maine. I put it up on the slide. I just couldn't forget to mention that if you are a veteran, if you know someone who's a veteran, we're always looking for more mentors. So please let us know. They are the reason this program's so successful. They are so dedicated to the people in the court, and they're there for them 24/7.
Thank you, Ziggy.
Yes, exactly. I was thinking about Ziggy as well. Yeah, yeah. So what happens when they fail? What if they go into the program, and what if they were just trying to pull the wool over our eyes? And they said, you know what, I just don't want to go to prison for 10, 20 years, whatever it is they're facing. So I'm going to go ahead and do this veterans court thing or this co-occurring disorders thing. If they're not serious, the consequence is prison. We do give people several chances. We do increased community service. We'll do a short stay at Kennebec County Jail. We'll do everything that we can to try to work with the person, but ultimately, if they're not successful, it's the same consequence as if they had never been in the program at all. They do go off and they serve their time in prison. That is important to me because I need to protect the community. I see that as my #1 goal in everything that I do. So I need to know that if someone's not serious in their commitment to turn their life around, that the result will be they will go to prison and the community will be protected from that individual when they're in prison. So that's important. Now, what happens if they succeed? Well, it's difficult getting clear recidivism rates because we don't keep great statistics of that in Maine as far as the prison and the county jails aren't all on the same computer system. So we have to look at national statistics. So I know this isn't perfect, but nationally, about 2/3 of those who leave prison return to custody within 3 years of being released. So that's a high number, right? I mean, that's far more than half are spending time in custody, coming back into our community, and then doing something that means that they have to go back into custody. So we're all the victims of that, right? Whatever it is that they're doing that brings them back into custody is something that impacts us. We don't want people to go back into custody. We want them to be successful. So what about with these programs we're talking about? Well, with the Maine drug courts, the return to custody is 16%. Right? I mean, it's so dramatically lower that right there you say, wow, okay, something's different here, something's working. For CODC, since 2014, we've not had a graduate commit another crime. So that we're really seeing a change now that we're kind of hitting our stride and getting all the people in place that need to be in place, and things are working well. With the Veterans Court, not a single graduate, knock on wood, knock on wood every time, has committed another crime after graduating. Now, there have been people in the program who have used drugs, who have done things against the rules of the program. Then they're terminated from the program, they go to prison. But once they graduate, once they complete all of the things we've told them to complete, we're not seeing them back. That's extraordinarily exciting news. And then the cost. What's the cost of these programs? $23,000 a year for a participant in a drug court, including counseling, monitoring, judge's time, clerk's time. They've included all of that. And this is a number that I got from Maeghan Lynch, who works for the judicial branch. And Maeghan knows everything about the judicial branch. $23,000 a year per participant. With the Veterans Court, we're not even paying for counseling. The TOGAS pays for the counseling. So with the Veterans Court, it's even less expensive. For an inmate at the Maine State Prison, I was there this morning. I know that feeling. I was like, oh, they let me out. Because I spent my morning at the Maine State Prison. And so Warden Liberty told me today, $42,000 a year to house someone at the Maine State Prison. The difference right there, I mean, that's for one inmate. When you think about there are approximately 900 inmates just at the Maine State Prison. That's not counting Windham, that's not counting Bolduc, that's not counting all the county jails. 900 times 42,000. Versus if we could get more drug courts, more veterans courts, more co-occurring disorders court. The cost is so much less. The effectiveness is so much higher if we could just find the political will to move the money from the prison system to this alternative system. We could see some dramatic results.
And to touch on that, actually, Kennebec County is, we're very lucky is that the legislature, the state of Maine, gives us about almost $130,000 a year from the state to help with our CARE program that we're running. which the other counties are kind of scratching their head. How did they do that?
Well, actually, I forgot to put that up on the slide. So actually, if you would describe CARA, this is a very important program that we have in Kennebec County. So yes. That's,
again, CARA is the Criminogenic Addiction Recovery Academy. And with the DA's office and other people are screened who would be good candidates for this. And these are people that do have addictions, and it's not necessarily a drug, could be alcohol, and they have committed various offenses. Now this program, it starts off as a 5.5-week intensive program within our jail. Now, for the people that do get to come into it, and this past Wednesday, we graduated 8, which was a great group. They were doing very well, and so far they're still doing very well now that they're out. So 5.5 weeks, they get counseling, they get mentoring, spiritual guidance, and I make sure that I'm there all the time, just seeing how they're doing, because people, just like me and you, we have our ups and downs throughout life. Everything is not always, happy. So they're treated different. They dress differently. They have carpeting in their pod, right? They get rec every morning at the same time. They're treated differently than the regular GP inmates, and it's to help them succeed. Since being sheriff, I have noticed that our society tends to set people up for failure, and it is up to us to set them up for success. And again, this is a program that I inherited. I'm making little changes as we're going along, because there's always like a little hiccup, like in life in general, as the program's going on. I'm very grateful to Mr. Anderson, who is retired from the Kennebec County Sheriff's Office Correctional Division. He's there 4 days a week as spiritual guidance and talking to people. The staff within the facility, there's always a corrections officer in the CARA group, because they're getting mental health counseling. We take them to the career centers, because we can't just kick them out and say, okay, fly little bird. It just doesn't work like that. We make sure that they're set up with housing, not going back to the environment for which they came from. Because we talk to them about this constantly, is that if you go back to your friends that you were hanging out with before, you're going to do it all over again. You need to meet new friends. Hang out with different people. You know what's right and what's wrong. So again, we're giving us all this information. In 5.5 weeks, you might think that that's a long time. It really isn't. It's just a lot of information crammed in. And they have to want to be successful. And we tell them, if you don't want to be here and you don't want to be successful, we can put you in GP and bring somebody in that does want to be successful. And the program is not 100%. It's just not. But I can say that from what I've noticed since January 1st when I took over, I bet we're probably 65%, somewhere around in there, maybe 70. I don't want to be too bold.
The numbers I got, that's right on, because the numbers I received from Elizabeth Maloney at Maine Pretrial is that about 33% were coming back. So the rest were having success, and that's for people who just completed the in-custody part. We're now saying that when you enter CARA, you have to agree to community supervision after you leave custody. So those that follow up for the full year, we give them, again, the carrot of a lesser charge at the end to encourage them to stay with us. That, people who do the whole year, they're not coming back. Yeah. We have not seen any of them come back. They've all been 100% successful. So and it's been amazing. I mean, I love to go have lunch with them, get to know them when they're still in custody, see them then when they're out of custody, and then see them at the end when they graduate after the full year. The transformation's extraordinary.
You know, and there's a change from day one, again, because I'm in there constantly, when they're a little lost and just not sure. And then once you get into week 5, you can see they're standing taller. You know, they're getting haircuts that are normal haircuts, or relatively normal haircuts, not these freaky things. And they're already changing into different people because they're getting the guidance and the information to help themselves. We can't do it for them. They've got to do it themselves. We tell them that. It's up to you. The ball is in your court. And as Maeghan said, once they're released from the in-custody portion, they're supervised. It's just not, okay, guidance. You have a problem. I mean, I give them my cards. If you have an issue, call me. Because, again, I want success and not failure. And I'm a public servant, and they are members of the public.
Yeah, no, it's been an amazing program to be a part of. I've had people say to me that they've never heard the things that they're hearing during the counseling sessions that they receive in the CARE program. You know, just things about self-empowerment, things about how to care for yourself. I mean, people have had many different upbringings and many different life experiences, and not everyone gets the same opportunities in life. And so this is really trying to give people who haven't had those opportunities a chance to learn about themselves and to learn that there's something special about them, and they can do more than they ever thought they could do. And we want them to be a part of our community. We need them to be a part of our community, and we're there to help them and to try and bring them back. So that's really the message.
And we will reward them when with their when they're doing really well. And you know, this last class, one of our participants, his girlfriend was giving birth to twins, and we got word that one of the twins didn't look very good. So I was like, okay, take him to Washington County. Yeah, it cost the taxpayers in Kennebec a tank of gas, maybe 2. But he was almost done. He was 10 minutes late from seeing his children being born, but they're both doing great. So he got to spend a little bit of time with them. And after 2 or 3 hours of seeing his children and his girlfriend, to Washington County, back to their jail, because he's from Washington County. We had Washington County inmate, we had a Penobscot inmate, and we had a York County inmate, because we are the only correctional facility that offers this kind of program. And after 31 years of law enforcement, I still have a heart, okay? It's important, again, because they are humans, to treat them well. They've made mistakes, we know that. They'll tell you that. So that was a really nice, that was a good thing.
And you know, it's important that you elect sheriffs with a heart, because that was his decision. He didn't have to let that happen, right? He didn't have to say, yeah, well, we're going to do this. We're going to make sure that he gets to bond with his children after they're born. And if he didn't get to do that, think about how that would impact him for the rest of his life. The anger that would eat away at him, the frustration, we would all suffer as a result of that. But that was, and I'm so grateful that Sheriff Mason made that decision and allowed him to go and be there for the birth of his children. It was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and with the program, we had another participant in the last class. He could have been released 3.5, 4 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I want to complete this program. I want to succeed. He stayed in jail another 4 weeks. And he did fantastic. He did fantastic because he wanted to succeed. You know, the intestinal fortitude of that young man, he 2 thumbs up.
Let me see if we have. Oh, this is a quote from Justice Nancy Mills, who was the head of the Veterans Court and the Co-occurring Disorders Court at its inception. She is truly a tremendous human being and the architect of this program. So I just had to put a quote up from her. It's cost-effective, humane, and it works. And I just thought that was just really beautiful. And you know, the reason that the legislature gave us the money for CARA is we had a participant of our CARA program, and he's actually given me permission to use his name. It's Jeff Parody. He started off in the CARA program, did the in-custody part, and when he left the in-custody part of CARA, he went into the Veterans Court. So his time in incarceration was spent in CARA, and then he went into our Veterans Court to continue his sentence. He was there for an aggravated OUI, which is a Class B because he'd had many before. He was suffering from alcoholism. He heard while he was in the Veterans Court that the CARA program was potentially going to be canceled because we had no funding. And as the sheriff said, it's $130,000 a year. And look at how successful it is. That's the extra that we need in order to pay the counselors from crisis and counseling. Because without that counseling piece, we really can't be successful. And a few other participants that, with the program that need to have some payment for their work. So Jeff Parody heard about this and he decided, you know what? I've been hearing about how I need to turn things around and make this world a better place and that it's up to me to be engaged, and I'm going to do something. I don't have my license. I'm not going to have my license for another 3 years. So I'm going to start running. So he started running, and he ran to the home of all of the CARA graduates in his class. And he got them to write letters about how CARA had changed their life. And then he asked them for who were the other CARA graduates, who were the people that they knew, and he kept running. And he ran to all these people's homes. And one day I got to my office and looked down the hill and actually saw Jeff Parody running up the hill to my office with a stack of paper. Said, "Hey, look what I got. Will this help?" And I said, "Whoa, yes, this will help." I brought it to the legislature. I gave it to the Appropriations Committee, and they just found the money. And I didn't ask questions. I was just like, yes, they found the money. And that was as a direct result of Jeff deciding that he was going to get involved. That's what happens when we help people. They get involved. And many of our veteran court mentors are graduates of the program themselves. They just keep paying it forward. They just keep saying, okay, I get it now. I need to do more than I ever thought I needed to do. And I need to take it to a whole nother level. It's inspiring. So yeah, that's how we ended up getting that money.